Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be ranking every single DC book that I currently own. Now, I cannot be ranking the Sandman books because I do actually have them. Here they are in their beauty, volume 1 and 2. I can't rank them because unfortunately I haven't read them in their entirety. I only read a little bit of part 1, and I have not read volume 2 at all, but it would be unfair if I were to just rank them at the top because, you know, of its significant popularity. But I'm just going to set those aside until I do read them, and I'm going to be posting a separate review of those books very shortly. But the one book, well, the several books that I want to be reviewing today are all these 7 DC books that I currently own. I'm going to be ranking them from least to greatest. Now, all these books are great. I won't lie, they are amazing books, but these are just my personal opinions. If you have a bias against this and you are also a comic fan, then I can understand that. But this is my ranking. So, at the bottom, I'm going to say Death of the Family. Now, this is a very interesting comic book. I read this at least 5 to 6 months ago, but this does continue right after the Court of Owls storyline. And this is the 3rd volume in Zack Snyder's comic storyline of the Batman. And I'm going to say it's a very interesting, dark take on the Joker, but not my favorite Batman story. I feel like it lacks Batman. Now, the story itself is very twisted, it's very demented. At some points, it's very unnerving, and I like that about DC. But it's just not my favorite. Maybe it's a little too modern for my taste, but honestly, you know, it's not my favorite. But I'm just gonna set that one aside, and then we can get to the next one on the list. So, next on the list for what I have right now is Batman: The Court of Owls. Now, this looks different because I got this one in black and white and because I wanted a hardcover one, but Amazon just wasn't selling them at the time, and that's where I get all my comic books. And this book is made in beautiful black and white. I guess it's just better to enjoy the story that way because Batman is a noir type of story, and because this is done in black and white, just makes the experience way better. I would just be careful how you buy it because the texture to the actual cover itself can be easily damaged, so just be very careful with how you treat these books. I prefer getting hardcover books just for collecting, soft covers just for reading, but that's just my personal opinion. If I'm gonna rank this so low, it's because I do love this book. There are other books better than The Court of Owls, but this book is very good. It is the first 2 volumes of the actual comic run, but it's just, I don't know, it's because it doesn't really it introduces something new, and it gives a much richer story than ever before. It's just, I would have enjoyed something if they gave more nuance to older characters. Like, for example, we get like Mr. Freeze in this book for like such a limited amount of time, and he really wasn't much of an impact to the story. I mean, yeah, he would throw in some villains sometimes, but when you usually get a villain that is just thrown in as a background character in some of the most popular comics from DC, they're usually put to good use, and I'm going to explain that in a second. But yeah, I love this book. I'm sorry it's ranked so low, but that's just the truth. All right, in our next spot, I'm gonna have to put Watchmen. Now, this is not a Batman book, and, you know, frankly, it's mainly out of the DC canon. But the original Watchmen, this is a very different book from other comics. This goes really explicitly violent and mature into the superhero universe. Think of The Boys, but in the DC universe, and, you know, you get your own set of characters, new characters. Personally, my favorite is Rorschach, but there's just so many good pages. It's such an iconic comic. I love it so much. You know, the art is just fantastic. Alan Moore is just such an excellent writer, but I rank it so low because there are just books that I have read from DC numerous times, and I had to have such patience to read Watchmen. because I think it's like 500 pages, and there are parts where it's like an actual novel, and I'm somewhat dyslexic. The only reason why I read is if there's like pictures included, because it keeps my imagination more, inclined to the story. If it was just words, then I'm not thinking properly. I have a very visual mind, so that's why Watchmen is ranked so low, but it's still a fantastic story. I watched the movie, I saw the series. The series actually keeps more accurate to the book than the movie ever did, because Zack Snyder did make changes, but the book itself, nothing can like replicate the book. The book is just this completely different thing. It can never be copied. It's its complete original story. It's just downright perfection. It can't be reduced to anything else. I'm sorry. That's just my personal opinion. All right, next on the list, I'm gonna have to get The Long Halloween. Now, The Long Halloween is an amazing story. First of all, I think it's a great detective story, but it's not my favorite Batman story. It's one of my favorite Batman stories. It just does not go in my top 3. I saw the animated movie. It was dog shit compared to the book. It was nothing related to the book. The book is way better in comparison to the animated movie. This is drawn from a lot of movie inspiration, like The Dark Knight and the new Batman movie. And I feel like the new Batman movie used this book primarily for the detective usage, because this is the book where you get to see Batman become a detective the most instead of a crime-fighting hero for the city. So I really enjoy how they used characters in this book too. And that goes back to when I was talking about Court of Owls. They used a lot of Batman characters and villains to help embark the story about who was the holiday killer, because that's what the story is about. You have to find this mysterious killer who kills on certain holidays. And they use a little bit of the Riddler, and I enjoy it because it's like a red herring at some points, and other villains too, but honestly, not my favorite Batman book, but it's still a fantastic book either way. All right, next on the list, and sorry you're gonna get mad, but Year One. Year One is not my favorite Batman book for a lot of reasons. It doesn't contain any villains whatsoever other than the mob. If there was more to this, if it was a longer story, I would appreciate it way more. Like if it had like more influential villains, I'd understand it. Like maybe you saw a Scarecrow or like, let's say Joker in their primary stages, and you got to see them like this in this book. Now, Joker was hinted in the end of this book, but really this book is basically just about Gordon and Batman through their first years in Gotham, and Batman is just fighting crime for the first time, and Gordon is a new cop and he's dealing with corruption. And that's an interesting perspective because it's a lot of POV, but I really want to see the world of Gotham develop around more characters, and this needed more it needed more of a plot where there was more like risk and tension. I didn't really get that with Year One. There was a lot of tension in other books, which I'm about to go to. These are the last two, but I'll get into that in a sec. So, my second book, and this is my first DC book that I have ever had, Killing Joke. Nothing really beats the genius of Killing Joke. Alan Moore did Watchmen. Alan Moore did Killing Joke. This is such a darkened book. The reason why this Joker is better than the one in Death of the Family is because this was the first time you see Joker snap. And there were other comics later, but this was the first one that you really got to see Joker lose his fucking mind. And he basically uses Gordon as some sort of slave. He shoots Barbara Gordon in her stomach, rapes her, takes photos of her, and then has her paralyzed so she can no longer be Batgirl. I'm assuming she was Batgirl. The animated movie was terrible, but I'm just going to assume that she was Batgirl. Then she later becomes Oracle in the Batman universe, but Batman also gets mind fucked in this comic too, because he's having to decide if he can either kill Joker or if he needs to arrest him. And in the end, you really have to. You're left on a cliffhanger. Like there's really nothing you can do but like think of the perfect ending for this book, because all that really there is that Joker tells a joke and then Batman starts laughing with him. So you really don't know if Joker gets put into prison, if Batman might potentially join the Joker, if Joker joins the Batman, or Batman kills Joker or Joker kills Batman. You really have to leave it up to interpretation. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is The Killing Joke, my #1 DC book. And a lot of you probably would have seen this coming, but it's Batman The Dark Knight Returns. Now, I know this is a very popular comic. I know a lot of DC stories and movies and other comics were pulled from this one exactly, but I'm gonna tell you right now, this is the best DC storytelling I have ever read, and I'm not that much of a reader. The art is fantastic. I know it's different from other art, and it's a little blocky, but it's amazing. This is probably the best version of The Dark Knight Returns you could possibly own, because it is in slipcase, and it has all of the 4 individual copies, hardcover. Not soft cover, hardcover. I mean, this is like one of the most influential covers in comic history. This book really changed comics for the better, because people were not really buying comics anymore. And it was a sad thing, but it was because they were just getting too goofy and family friendly. When this came along and Frank Miller actually wrote the book and he did most of the art, it changed because it was so mature. You got to see a really old weakened Batman. You got a female Robin. Batman kills Joker. You see Superman and Batman fight, which is a lot of inspiration for the Batman v Superman movie, Dawn of Justice. It is nothing in comparison. Yes, Zack Snyder pulled a lot of the fight scenes from the book, but the story is nothing in comparison. This beats it every step of the way. A lot of Ben Affleck's Batman is drawn from this Batman. I mean, the suit is literally identical. It's the same, but I'm just gonna tell you right now, that is such a popular pick in my opinion. I just love that book. But yeah, guys, that's my DC ranking. I'll make a Marvel ranking when I read more Marvel books, but until then, thanks for watching.